The curtain's going up on a musical breaking new ground on Broadway, both for its characters and the actors who play them.
But let us know what you want to bring.
Clinical psychologist Emilio Amigo runs a counseling center for autistic people in Columbus, Ohio, and he had a big idea.
Many of my clients never went to their homecoming or prom because they weren't welcomed. It would have been a disaster. And I'm like, how many of you guys would love to go to a big formal? Hey, Joel, are you interested in a date for the Amigo Spring Formal?
Putting on a prom involved teaching his clients new skills, like dancing.
You hear the music, Chris? Do you hear the pace of this music?
And asking someone out.
Wanna do the formal together?
That'd be nice, Chris. I would enjoy that.
All right.
Their journey was the subject of a 2015 documentary called How to Dance in Ohio.
What getting older means for awkward situations.
That story is now a Broadway musical.
All of us who work on the show get messages from autistic individuals saying, I've seen myself represented on stage. That, to me, that's what we do it for.
Sammy Canold is the show's director, but she wasn't its first one.
The show's original director was the legendary Hal Prince, and he very sadly passed away in 2019.
Prince was the director of shows like Phantom of the Opera, Evita, Cabaret, and many Sondheim musicals.
Hal's granddaughter is autistic. My brother is autistic. For him, the show was very personal. For me, the show is very personal.
Going places, I am going places.
But How to Dance in Ohio isn't just about autistic people.
Tommy, we've so much in common.
All of the autistic characters are played by autistic actors.
Got a lot of feedback from people saying, I don't think you're going to find the actors that you're looking for.
You
Said,
mean there aren't enough Broadway caliber people with autism?
That's what they were implying. Right. And we could have cast the show 3 times over.
There is this saying, if you've met one autistic person, you have met one autistic person. You are now meeting 7 autistic people.
Ashley Wool, Imani Russell, and Liam Pierce are among them.
I think you picked the perfect 3 people because all 3 of us are so
Very,
different.
very different, yeah.
I was diagnosed to be on the spectrum when I was 5.
I was a junior in college.
May of 2021. And I was really excited because I finally had a word for something that I think I knew about myself internally for a long time, but I didn't have the language for.
Autism comes in a huge variety of forms. It's described as a spectrum for a reason.
The great enemy of someone who's autistic is social anxiety and anxiety. And that comes from, I don't know what to expect, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, I don't know what to say.
Moving forward, time keeps moving forward.
People like me are more sensitive to a lot of different things, like lights or sound.
You have a very good work ethic, but what you need to learn from us is work etiquette. Okay?
I think another thing when it comes to being autistic is the concept of masking, which is sort of having to, hide the movements that we do or the sounds that we make, or having to speak at times that you don't want to speak to make other people feel comfortable.
The actors were encouraged to blend their own expressions of autism with their characters.
Sammy Canold, our director, was very open and supporting of being like, if you on stage feel the need to let out your energy or like show your excitement in your own individual physical ways that you do outside of this rehearsal space, feel free.
The rehearsal process offered unusual accommodations for the cast and crew.
Someone will say, I have a sensitivity to scented soap, and then our company management team will say, okay, we're going to replace all the scented soap in the building with unscented soap. And so it's hundreds of little things like that.
For autistic showgoers with sensory sensitivities, the show offers cool-down areas, sunglasses, and headphones. And for non-autistic audience members, there's a message.
Do I only exist on this planet to make somebody else feel inspired?
The characters in the show explicitly sing, we don't want to be objects of pity, we don't want to be inspiring. At the same time, there's probably not an audience member who doesn't say, it's about people with challenges succeeding, which is inspiring.
I like to pose the question, is your feeling of inspiration just infantilization?
Yeah.
They're so inspiring because they're autistic, but they did that. Autistic, but they did that.
Yeah. The point that we're making is, it's not an in spite of, it's a yes and.
It's not that our disabilities are the hurdles. It's other people's expectations for us that are the hurdles.
This book is full of phenomenal facts, the kind that I really enjoy.
How to Dance in Ohio has earned itself an army of fans.
The very first preview, the 7 of us came on stage to do the prologue, standing ovation
About a minute
for
and
like
a half,
a minute and a
yeah.
half.
Yeah, I said hi, welcome, and then I couldn't get the next line out.
I was like, wait a minute, we haven't done anything yet. We haven't earned this. And I was like, what?
It is so cool, just like at our stage door and stuff, of like young kids like who have come up to be like, I'm autistic too, and I'm like, whoa.
But some of the biggest fans are the real people from the documentary.
I'm smiling when I usually don't smile.
Director Sammy Canold introduced them on opening night.
The real life Drew.
It was a really crazy, awesome, surreal experience to be able to like look at him and be like, hey, thank you for existing, because my entire life and what I do here every night is because of you.
Dr. Amigo kind of liked it too. You've seen the show, have you?
Yes, a few times. If I'm counting right, it's about 13.
Do you think the documentaries and the Broadway show help your clients in any way?
Every day. Because it's a story about them. It builds our self-esteem. It builds our sense of significance.
I'm throwing my best chance away if I...
So on the great spectrum of art, when we look back historically, what will this show have represented?
Oh, How to Dance in Ohio. That was one of
That was
the
a turning
beginnings.
point.
Yeah, that was one of the beginnings.
I hope that in 10 years, it's no longer a big deal that there's 7 autistic actors in a cast. Like, okay, so what? That's great. Let's go. Let's start working on a play.
On Broadway, she seems to have it all, a talented actor, singer, and dancer. But Tony Award winner LaChance has added a new line to her remarkable resume. Producer David Pogue has her story.
LaChance Sapp Gooding, better known as LaChance, has spent most of her life on stage.
I started my career in this theater, the Booth Theater. Yep.
Your first Broadway show?
My first Broadway show as a leading actress was on this stage.
It was 1990, and the show was Once on This Island. Then came starring roles in Company, Ragtime, and The Color Purple. That one landed her a Tony Award.
Oh my God, I want it. I really want it.
But behind the scenes, she's faced some tougher times.
I dedicate this song to my late husband, Calvin Joseph Gooding. Amazing grace.
In 2001, when she was pregnant with her second daughter, she got word of the 9/11 attacks. Her husband, Calvin Gooding, was a securities trader in the World Trade Center. She performed at the opening of the 9/11 Museum in 2014, but did not return to the World Trade Center site again until this past October, when she gave a one-night solo concert.
I want to claim this space as a place where I can be and not have the fear or the anxiety of stepping on someone's ashes.
That the world will turn away from you, child.
But along her 40-year Broadway journey, LaChance had noticed something many of her shows had in common: a certain lack of diversity.
People say, what do you mean Broadway isn't diverse? I've seen shows my whole life with black talent on stage. And I say, exactly. You've seen black talent on stage, but you've not seen black talent behind the scenes. You've not seen black directors. You've not seen black choreographers. My entire career, the first time that I had a black director was 2021 in Trouble in Mind. I've never had a black director on Broadway prior to that. as a lead actress.
Let's see. So Once on This Island, black casts, but white writers?
White writers, Lynn Ahrens and Stephen Flaherty, who are amazing. I love them.
Color Purple.
White director, white writer. Ragtime, same thing.
How does that happen?
It happens because there are not enough people, black people or people of color, at the decision-making table.
I like the way you look at life and think outside the box.
And so, after 40 years as a performer, LaChance stepped off the Broadway stage to become a Broadway producer.
It's important for people like myself who have the access, who have the exposure, who have the relationships to get in a position for young black people that want to come into my business.
Right.
Some people will say, well, I don't know any black female lighting designers. As a black producer, I can say, let me show you where they are.
Who see the deuce of spades, huh? One who see it never fade, huh?
Her producing career is only 2 years old, but she seems to have the magic touch. Top Dog Underdog won a Tony for Best Revival of a Play. The musical Kimberly Akimbo won 5 Tonys.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm looking for some streaks of color, maybe some extensions.
Oh, we have so many colors. Which color?
And the limited engagement of the play she produced last fall, Jaja's African hair braiding, had to be extended twice.
Oh my God! What are you doing? That's too much oil. You want me to break out? I didn't put too much.
And I grew up in braiding salons. I raised my daughters in braiding salons. So it's lovely to be able to see a part of my childhood and my culture that we're now bringing to Broadway audiences and audiences that have never even considered going into a hair salon.
And producing isn't the end of her efforts to make Broadway more inclusive.
We stand on the shoulders of the incredible leaders and the artists who came before us. I am the president of Black Theater United, which is an advocacy organization, and our mission is to protect black talent, black bodies, and black lives on Broadway and across America.
Thanks to the efforts of Black Theater United, 3 theaters on the Great White Way are now named after black theater artists, up from just 1. And every major Broadway theater owner has agreed to a set of diversity principles, including
there will be no more all-white creative teams. They've all committed to that.
It all seems to be working. Last year, 29% of Broadway audiences were people of color, the greatest number ever recorded.
If we don't start diversifying the stories that we bring to Broadway, we're not going to have any audience.
She's producing another musical this spring, and she'll make her directing debut this year too. Her only immediate plans for returning to performing are right now. The song is from Kimberly Akimbo, the show she produced.
Father Time, slow down the day. Don't let the dark come and steal it away. For goodness sake. One of the missions that I have is to tell stories that are human, not based in the fact that I am a black woman, that I have survived 9/11, oh, poor LaChance. No, I need you to say, go LaChance. You did that. You are thriving. You are helping to make room for so many others despite all of that. So I pray for another day. Father, hear my prayer. Father, hear my prayer.
That was fun!
It was a much-loved film based on a best-selling novel. Get out your hankies. The Notebook opened this past week on Broadway. David Pogue talks about the story's enduring appeal with author Nicholas Sparks.
Every Broadway show has a souvenir stand for things like t-shirts and mugs. But at a new musical that opened this past week, they're selling this.
I guess this is one of the hottest little merch on Broadway, according to articles that I've been reading. It is a tissue box. It's got the logo of the play.
Nicholas Sparks has published 24 romance novels, all bestsellers. They've sold 130 million copies and have been made into 11 movies. But the very first one he published is his biggest seller of all, The Notebook from 1996.
I wrote you every day for a year.
You wrote me?
Yes. It wasn't over. It still isn't over.
The 2004 movie version put young Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams on the map and became a romance classic. And now, it's a Broadway musical.
Of course, I was here on opening night. It's unbelievable.
You didn't cry, did you?
Yeah, I got a little. You get a little weepy.
And he's not alone.
Did you cry at all?
From the jump.
Did you cry?
I did. Only, one elegant eye.
You took a curtain call with the cast on opening night. Was that your first time on a Broadway stage?
Oh, yeah. Shoot. It's my first time backstage. I'm looking around like a tourist.
Every version of The Notebook has employed a framing device. As the end of his life approaches, husband Noah reads from a notebook to his wife Allie, who has Alzheimer's disease. It's the notebook containing the story of their own decades-long love.
Take me back one day, take me back.
That was a story inspired by my ex-wife's grandparents. They met when they were young. They were separated for years. She meets someone else. She comes back, finds her first true love, and they live long and happy. And then in their final years, age begins to take its toll.
Hey, I'm Noah.
I'm Allie.
Is there any shame in hearing this show described as a tearjerker?
I don't mind it. If we are the play that makes you feel things / cry, then there are worse boxes to be in.
Playwright Becca Brunstetter wrote the script, and songwriter Ingrid Michaelson wrote the music and lyrics. I spoke to them on opening night.
Yes, we normally don't wear matching blazers and have this much makeup on.
It's the first time either of them has worked on a Broadway show.
I thought, I can do this. I can figure out how to make people who are going to come with their arms folded unfold their arms, basically.
And then let's all laugh, and kind of combining those two things constantly, because laughter and tears are just so right there next to each other all the time.
In the musical, 3 pairs of actors play the couple at 3 different ages.
From the very beginning, we knew we wanted 3 Allies and 3 Noahs. You can have an older version of a character watching their younger self, especially since we are dealing with memory so much and losing memory and fragmented memory, that having these other versions of themselves on stage were really helpful.
No Nicholas Sparks romance novel has ever included a black main character, but in the musical, Noah and Allie seem to change races fluidly at different ages.
I love you, Allie.
I asked co-directors Michael Greif and Shelley Williams about that.
Race is not the story. You're seeing the spirit of who they are. You're seeing not only their essence, but their experience. And for someone like me who grew up looking at theater through a window and never through a mirror, being able to see myself on stage is powerful.
It grew out of how do we do this in the best possible way, unique, and I think very wonderful casting idea.
Many on the creative team relate deeply to the dementia depicted in the show.
My mom has Alzheimer's, and so when I read the story, it really spoke to me.
I also have a grandfather who had Alzheimer's, so I had witnessed it firsthand. And it seems like pretty much everyone has a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle or a sibling, so it's...
With some form of dementia.
Or yeah.
Does it affect the writing?
Yeah. I mean, all of that is in there from us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Men making love and babies, raising hell and then heaven, the sadness and its joy.
Reviews of the musical have ranged from rave to reserved. But Nicholas Sparks suspects that a story this universal will be critic-proof.
It is a love story. It is a story of young love. It is a story of reunited love. It's a story of everlasting love. It is also a story of memory.
And speaking of eternal themes, remember that box of tissues? Turns out the musical's producers weren't the first to recognize the marketing potential of Kleenex.
30 years ago, when the Notebook novel first came out, this, of course, is what we sent to critics and bookstore owners. And look at this. This was it. We gave them a hanky for their tears.
Oh, come on.
The Notebook and genuine emotion
Yep.
have always gone
You sent
hand
around a
in hand.
handkerchief with the books to the critics. Oh my gosh. It's 30 years now. It's disposable paper, but it's the same idea.
It's the same idea.
Especially in this election year, it's important to remember just how cherished is our right to vote. For women, that right is just over 100 years old. The story of how it came to pass is now playing out on Broadway, thanks to two modern-day pioneers. Here's Martha Teichner.
Let mother vote. We raised you after all.
Question. In school, did you learn anything about the women's suffrage movement? Other than maybe that it wasn't till 1920 that a constitutional amendment gave women throughout the United States the right to vote? No?
Let mother vote. We'll keep our country clean. We'll tidy up our politics until they are pristine.
Well, there's a Broadway show for that. Suffs, short for suffragists. Don't call them suffragettes. It's considered sexist.
These are the lovely Suffs of our 1913 New York State Campaign Committee. Let mother vote.
I knew hardly anything about the suffragists.
That was before Shayna Taub agreed to write Suffs.
I think I knew basic information about Susan B. Anthony. I had heard the name Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and vaguely knew there was a women's rights convention in the 19th century that kind of kicked it off, and that was it.
Without the Southern women's support, there might be no Mart. We refuse.
The musical picks up the story later, in 1913, the year thousands of suffragists staged the first ever big political march on Washington, many wearing white, led by a woman on a white horse.
I work for the movement, not for you. Then why are you tearing the movement in two?
The march was organized by Alice Paul. Suffs spotlights the cause, warts and all.
Why are you fighting me? I am not the enemy.
Including the rivalry between Paul, played by Taub, and Carrie Chapman Catt, played by Jen Colella. Equally dedicated titans of the movement, but from different generations, employing very different tactics.
This is not ancient history. We can reach back and touch the Suffs. Alice Paul lived until 1977. These rights were not inevitable. Every new generation has to fight to protect these rights and freedoms again and again and again.
Amazing!
As ambassadors for the show's message, Malala Yousafzai
Important name. Just kidding.
and Hillary Clinton were named producers.
Say producer, and I will show up.
Nobel Prize winner Yousafzai, who was shot in the head after advocating for girls' education in Pakistan. Clinton, who came so close to being elected the first woman president of the United States. This was the reaction when each of them met the company for the first time.
Wow. This is so exciting, and I believe so much in what you're doing.
It was so powerful to meet all of these incredible characters and see the complexity behind all that struggle.
Their presence like extra juice. For actors already stoked to be in a show that's more than the sum of the parts they play.
I'm a new mother. I'm doing this now so that her voice can more easily be amplified when she's able to speak.
Excuse me, Mrs. Cat. Unfortunately, ma'am, the president must postpone your meeting indefinitely.
Jen Colella's character, Carrie Chapman Catt, went on to found the League of Women Voters.
It's the Sunday on top of the Dream Sunday.
I'm a great American.
Ali Bonino is Lucy Burns, jailed, tortured, and force-fed, imprisoned longer than any other suffragist.
It reminds you that what we're doing is bigger than just us, than just play, than just storytelling.
Nikki James is the crusading journalist, Ida B. Wells.
Wait, my turn. Well, I sure don't see you waiting yours. No.
Suffs doesn't shy away from the fact that the women's suffrage movement discriminated against black women.
But you want me to wait my turn.
What looked like a genuine sisterhood developed over a month of Suffs rehearsals. Note, practically everybody involved in the show is female.
For you to lend your name and your reputation, it has to be pretty meaningful. What is the major reason why you said yes to Suffs?
It carries a very strong message for women and girls that the fight may not be over yet. Of course, I talk about serious things, but I also believe that sometimes it's not a speech, sometimes it's not a protest that can make it all happen. So when I think about a musical, for me it's a tool, it's a platform where you are spreading that message, but at the same time people are enjoying it.
By the time the cast and orchestra began rehearsing together, they all seemed to be having a rollicking good time.
I'm going to go out marching to do something. So great. I mean, I just can't, I cannot tell you. I cannot tell you. It is such a joy. Oh, it's going to change history. It really is.
What made you interested in becoming a producer?
Last summer, I got a letter from Shayna asking me if I would be willing to be a producer, and you know, I'd never done anything like that before. I'm a huge fan of the theater, but I said, sure, I'll try if I can be helpful. We're in the middle of an election year, and I think any conversation about getting people to vote, how it took so long for women to get the right to vote, how you should not throw away, ignore the power of your vote, I think all of that is good. This is so meaningful and truly historic because women's history doesn't get told in a way that's accessible and so exciting and true.
But it's more than that with you. Mm-hmm. It is your life.
It is my life. It is my life. Keep fighting, keep marching, keep trying. You know, what's that great line in one of the songs? Progress is possible, but not guaranteed. That's how I feel about the whole life that I've led, the progress that I've seen.
On the first night of previews, women showed up wearing suffragist white and put on the sashes they found on their seats. Why do I think maybe that might just keep happening?
He's a pinball wizard, has to be a trick, a pinball wizard.
The phrase pinball wizard entered pop culture back in 1969 with the release of Tommy, a rock opera by The Who. Tracy Smith caught up with the legendary band's Pete Townsend to trace the album's musical journey.
Do you like coming to New York?
Yeah, I love it. I love the walking. And one of the things that's interesting is you're looking ahead. You see somebody that you know 100 yards away, and by the time they've arrived, you remember their name, when you last saw them, because you've got all that time.
Because you've got time.
Yeah.
For Pete Townsend,
I love it.
Things are looking up.
Look at that. Heal me, see me, feel me.
Yeah. Is anybody looking at it except us? Look up! people up there? Oh, the power in youth.
His Tommy is back on Broadway. His original rock opera has been reimagined for 2024. But it's still one of those rare Broadway shows where you already know the words to just about every song. Tommy is the story of young Tommy Walker, who, after witnessing a murder, shuts down emotionally and becomes, quote, deaf, dumb, and blind. And a pinball prodigy who's healed in part by seeing his reflection in a mirror. Tommy, can you hear me? Nearly all of it was written in the late 60s by Pete Townsend, who was then in his early 20s. It was made into a flashy, surreal movie in 1975, starring The Who and a who's who of entertainment, including Elton John, Tina Turner,
his eyes react to light, the dials detected,
Jack Nicholson, and Anne Margaret. And in 1993, director Des McAnuff convinced Townsend to take it to Broadway, where it won 5 Tonys.
You may be absolutely right with sensation. I mean, I think we get also...
On national television, what the do I know?
Townsend and McAnuff are together again, and now, with the world seemingly obsessed with looking at itself, both are convinced that Tommy is more relevant today than ever.
Were you at all concerned that people would see this as a nostalgia show?
Yes, absolutely. It was less about, let's rework it for a modern audience. It was that everybody's wandering around staring into a mirror, trying to escape a hostile universe, albeit it's a black mirror, but it resonates in a new way. It has a pertinence now that we didn't think it necessarily did 30 years ago.
Tommy is played by Ali Louis Borsky, and talk about a baptism of fire. It's his first Broadway role ever.
Speaking of scary, was it intimidating at all meeting Pete Townsend?
Yeah, I really wanted to make sure that I was doing his piece justice.
Can I go to sensation, please? Can I have the 4 couples in their spots?
It's the same for choreographer Lauren Latero. There's not much dialogue in Tommy, so every move is important.
Do you have a particular favorite dance moment where you look and go, oh, that works?
I really love this sort of, we call it the rubber band section of Pinball Wizard. The kids are doing this and then they jump off the pinball machines, and some of the guys get so high off those pinball machines. It's pretty cool.
In Townsend's original version, Tommy was a rock star, but a friend of his, who was a critic and a pinball fanatic, thought that was a tired idea, so Townsend came up with a solution overnight.
I said, well, I could change it so that instead of being a rock star, he was a pinball player. I was clutching at straws. Anyway, so next day I sent him the demo.
I'm sorry, next day?
Next day, yeah.
You just wrote it?
Yeah.
Pinball Wizard?
Yeah. And he called me on the phone. He said, Pete, it's 5 stars and an extra ball. Anyway, so he gave it a great review.
Tommy has stayed on The Who's playlist for years now, but for Townsend, it's always been a lot more than just an album.
You've said that each iteration of Tommy takes something out of you.
Yeah, I can't remember the context of the quote, but I've said so much about it, and sometimes I chuck stuff out just to sound clever. So.
But I know that in the past, like when you played Tommy all the way through at Royal Albert Hall in 2017, that was tough for you.
I had an anxiety attack.
Why?
I sing Acid Queen when The Who perform. and I was in the middle of singing, and I remembered a memory that I'd never remembered before. When I was a kid and I was staying with my crazy grandmother, I was between 4.5 and 6.5. I was abused, and I remembered it. I'd never remembered it before.
Middle of
on
playing.
The stage.
Oh my goodness.
And I nearly stopped and walked off the stage. So that kind of stuff does happen. The subject matter of Tommy is really heavy in lots of ways.
But it's the heaviness, and just maybe the music, that resonates with people. So now, Tommy is reaching yet another generation.
When somebody says, oh, you went to see Tommy, what was it like? It's about conveying the way that you've been affected. Is it important? Or is it just, dare I say it, is it just ABBA? You know, and the thing about ABBA and their success is just originally the brilliance of the music, and you tend to go no further. And story has been imposed from the outside on the music.
There's not a
in
story
this case, what you actually have is a story that underpins some really great music, rock music and pop music, and a few show tunes, which is worth thinking about.
You feel me coming?
So what are your hopes for Tommy this time around?
You know, we just hope that it will dig in for a while. Des and I were committed to the idea of bringing the show to Broadway with our fingers crossed, because there's lots of other great things going up. But for me, it was just for the romance.
The romance?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Broadway. You know, it's just so great to be on Broadway.
That's Diana Ross and Michael Jackson in the groundbreaking movie, The Wiz. Now, this beloved film is returning to its roots on Broadway. Kella Fasane catches up with The Wiz, Wayne Brady.
On Let's Make a Deal, Wayne Brady is the host.
So you wanted to meet the wizard.
But right now on Broadway, he's the Wiz.
Let me tell you that you've come to the right place. Shall I make you a frog or a lizard?
Does it really sink in when you see your face on the wall?
I think it sinks in. This never gets old. I mean, come on. It's my big old head on Broadway.
It's very believable. If I saw that, I would think that guy can give me whatever I need.
And see, then half of the job is already done.
Sweet thing, let me tell you about the world and the way things are.
In this revival of the Tony Award-winning musical set to open in mid-April, Brady's Wiz is both a showman and a con man, promising the world to Dorothy, the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Lion.
It's just nice to know when your art touches someone.
Part of the fun of the show is there's so much buildup. It's called The Wiz. They've heard that you're the Wiz.
And it's
Everyone's
coming.
talking about the Wiz. It's coming. It's coming.
It's coming.
We hit the intermission, still no Wiz.
You spend a whole act waiting for this cat.
And finally, we see whatever this is.
Yes, this. This is my throne.
It's like a human-sized hookah or something.
It's his place of power. It's his throne. That's the whole thing about the Wiz. Because you come out in something like this, you have to have the energy to live up to this thing.
Dig this, a magic slipper-wearing wicked witch killer who goes by the name of Dorothy.
We first met Brady earlier this year in San Francisco,
So you wanted to meet the wizard.
where he joined the show in the final months of a 13-city national tour.
Tell me about this thing that seems like it would be tricky, which is this production is up and it's going, and then you've got to jump in as the Wiz. Is it like jumping on a moving train?
Exactly it. That's exactly what I'd say. It's like being shot out of a cannon. It's like double dutch with 30 other people on stage.
5, 6, and 7, 8, 1, 2, 3.
The tour was a boot camp and a bonding experience,
So collapse in so that you're ready to go into this.
especially for Nichelle Lewis, who plays Dorothy,
If I'm up or down, if I'm here or there.
Avery Wilson, the Scarecrow,
And you can't get out of the game.
Philip Johnson Richardson, the Tin Man,
Listen, boy, you're to me, girl. Woo, does that feel good?
and Kyle Ramar Freeman, the Lion.
I'm a mean old lion.
we are actually friends and like each other outside of the theater space. So when you can find that in a cast, that is so evident on stage. You can tell we like each other, there is love, and that we're having fun doing this together.
He's on down the road. Put your right foot in front of the left. He's on down.
With opening night just days away, changes are still being made to a musical with a long history. L. Frank Baum's novel, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, was published in 1900 and transformed 39 years later into a beloved movie with Judy Garland following the yellow brick road to the Emerald City.
You're off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz.
In 1974, a new all-black musical called The Wiz rewrote the story. Now Dorothy wasn't just off to see the wizard, she was easing on down the road. Reviews were mixed, but audiences loved it. The film version of The Wiz starred Michael Jackson, Lena Horne, Richard Pryor, and Diana Ross as Dorothy.
One thing I'd kind of forgotten about the 1978 movie is that Dorothy is a grown-up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
She's a teacher. She's wearing a blouse.
Yeah.
Very different.
She's got heels on, okay?
My Dorothy is a little bit more of a teenager, and she's just trying to figure everything out and find her voice. So.
She had a little sass, too.
Yeah, oh yeah, of course. She's a black girl.
Period.
Yes, I always layer that in, always.
The point blank period vibe.
Exactly. And I knew that too.
The idea behind this revival was to update The Wiz, but not too much.
What's new with this production is we're all similar in age. Usually Dorothy has like 3 old uncles. But now she has 3 friends, and that makes it a different experience. And we're singing, the arrangements are incredible.
When I saw it, it felt like Ease On Down the Road was almost an extra character in the show because people love that song so much. And as soon as they hear the beat, they start moving.
Oh, clapping.
Yes, singing.
Clapping. It's amazing to see, though, that how people receive the music in itself still to this day. It's kind of embedded in everyone.
And also, there are songs that I feel like that people, they're like, oh, wow, I didn't realize I love this song so much.
I wish I was home. I wish I was back there with the things I've been knowing.
While audiences may recognize the music, they might also notice what's missing. There's no Toto, no flying monkeys, and no squad of police mice on patrol. Most of the changes come from director Shelley Williams and comedian and writer Amber Ruffin.
We wanted this Wiz to not be of the 70s like the other Wiz is. We wanted this Wiz to be of no time, for it to be timeless, for us to not use any slang that you won't be using in 30 years.
Put your arms around me, child, like when you bumped your shit.
And audiences will find out that Dorothy came to live with Aunt Em in Kansas after the death of her beloved mother and father.
Why was it important to flesh out Dorothy's backstory and to tell us about her parents?
It's a little bit of my own crusade as a director. You know, I think it's really important that we're not presuming that you've got like a deadbeat mom, and that we are really dignifying what your life is. Same thing for the Lion, Tin Man, Scarecrow, that we knew that they belonged to people who loved them, that there are people that miss them, and that we are constantly reinforcing this idea of belonging and legacy.
To give everyone such a rich backstory, it makes it such a complete story. Whereas before, the thing with The Wiz and The Wizard of Oz, it's almost vignettes. It's almost like sketches.
Yeah.
But here to make a real through line for the whole thing, it feels like a musical.
If you're gonna bring me something I can use. Don't you bring me no bad news.
Both Williams and Ruffin are confident
So you wanted to meet the Wiz?
that, unlike the character in the show, their Wiz won't disappoint.
Broadway is a very hit or miss place. How much pressure is there for this thing to succeed?
I feel like, sure, there's immense pressure. We took something that is precious to everyone and we messed with it. But there is zero pressure because I have seen high school productions of The Wiz where I'm like, this is the best show I've ever seen. The Wiz is just good. It's a good show. I'm not saying it's bulletproof, but I'm saying if you come to this theater to have a good time, you will have a good time, and that's a guarantee.
Money makes the birds go round, the birds go round, the birds. Money makes the birds go round, the blinking, blinking sun. Money, 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 money.
That's Joel Grey and Liza Minnelli in the classic film version of the musical Cabaret. Mo Rocca reports the show's back on Broadway. Its message still resonating more than half a century on.
In 1966, when the musical Cabaret first appeared on Broadway, audiences were dazzled and disconcerted by the show's depiction of life in early 1930s Berlin. Joel Grey played the MC of the Kit Kat Club. He would reprise the role in the Oscar-winning 1972 film version, welcoming patrons to
Leave your troubles outside.
But it's an invitation laced with menace, since waiting in the wings is the horror of the Nazi Third Reich.
The Cabaret is a place of hope. And I think it's why all of these really extraordinary beings descend on it. And how that hope is dashed and broken and destroyed.
Is Cabaret a warning?
For me, it is. It shows the hope, the joy, the aspiration, but it shows how progress can be taken from you, and we can regress.
In the brand new production, renamed Cabaret at the Kit Kat Club, opening this weekend on Broadway, Gayle Rankin plays funny, flighty, live-for-today singer Sally Bowles.
Life is a
role immortalized
cabaret, old chum.
by Liza Minnelli in the movie.
Come to the cabaret.
I started thinking about Liza the other night and I was like, stop it. And first thing, maybe this time, I was like, I honor you, I honor you, I honor you. I have to go on stage now.
And a serpentine Eddie Redmayne seduces the crowd as the MC.
And every night, beneath where you're standing, I sort of emerge from down here, and that iconic drum roll. I stand in the bottom waiting to be rocketed up to the stage, and it feels like going to the guillotine. And then just as it starts to rise, something euphoric happens.
Both Rankin and Redmayne have been to the Cabaret before. She in a supporting role in the 2014 revival starring Alan Cumming, Redmayne, an Oscar and Tony winner, in the 2021 London staging of this new production. But his connection goes back even farther.
You've had a long-term relationship with this show. How old were you?
I was about 14 or 15 years old. I was at school and I was cast as the MC, and I'd never listened to Cabaret, so that was my introduction to it, and something in that experience struck me. I don't come from a very theatrical family. My parents were always beautifully supportive, but from an early age, I was like, this is what I want to do. And my parents were like, okay, but we hear all the statistics about actors being out of work, and I don't know, is this the thing? And I'll never forget that after they came to see my school production of Cabaret, they were like, go for it.
Really?
You may have noticed that the three of us are surrounded on all sides by seats.
It needs to feel different. It needs to kind of shake us up and take us to a different world. It needs to sort of let us forget where we are and who we are.
In a radical reimagining of the August Wilson Theater, designer Tom Scott ripped out the old stage and added seating to create a nightclub in the round.
That's an interesting point.
Wild.
Yeah.
This correspondent can attest it's a very big deal.
This can only happen if you are witnessing other audience members going through the same thing as you, the same feelings that you are. I think the more we can do that, the better.
We were there when the cast saw the reconfigured theater for the first time.
Absolutely
Well, I can literally touch people. This is fantastic. We can come in, we can say hi, we can talk, walk amongst everybody.
Even getting to your seat in this production is an experience.
This is what we're calling the Vault Bar.
Rather than enter through the theater's front doors, denizens of this Kit Kat Club walk in through the side for a show before the show.
You get taken into these cavernous bars and you pass performers, musicians, with the idea being that once you enter the theatre, the space we're in now, the theatre proper, you have genuinely left all your troubles outside. You're in Weimar, Germany.
They're lulling you into a feeling that makes you understand just how evil the evil is.
Lulling, boom.
Yeah.
Wow.
Two-time Tony winner Bebe Neuwirth plays Fräulein Schneider, the Gentile owner of a boarding house who falls in love with a Jewish man.
If you brought me diamonds, if you brought me pearls,
And then faces a terrible decision.
roses like some other gents might cling to other girls.
There's darkness and there's light in everything. And in this show, there is light and there's horror as well.
Why does Cabaret keep coming back?
The first answer is the music, because it's just glorious.
That glorious score is by John Kander and Fred Ebb.
It's also sadly timeless because it is also a story about encroaching evil and what do we do in the face of it? Do we recognize it? Do we acknowledge it? Do we fight it?
Even in the happiest moments,
Yes.
it's there, right?
Yeah, that's right. You can feel it just beyond the theater's doors. Just outside, there are rumblings.
The musical Cabaret turns 58 this year.
I'm so only mania.
Original MC Joel Grey recently visited the theater to celebrate his 92nd birthday and confer his blessing on Eddie Redmayne, Gail Rankin, and the rest of the company. They hope to welcome many more patrons to their club.
Oh my gosh, wait until my mum and dad come over.
wait.
They're so excited. My dad, I remember saying, like, I spoke to him the other day, he's like, I just hate the fact that you're over in New York and I could be there every night, he said.
That is so
very
sweet.
sweet.
Our Califasane is on Broadway this morning with a ticket to a unique Tony-nominated musical.
People are talking about a new Broadway musical that has no talking at all. The musical is Illinois, based on a 2005 album called Illinois, pronounced without the E, by the singer-songwriter Sufjan Stevens.
Drove to Chicago.
For the show, an onstage band handles the music and the singing. The actors are dancers, telling the story not through dialogue, but through the choreography of Justin Peck.
I've seen Sufjan Stevens in concert. This is not traditionally dance music.
He doesn't write music in a straightforward way. I think it actually challenges the ear, and I felt like there was a unique rhythmic and dance world to be found in his music.
Peck began exploring that world in 2012 when he used Stevens' music in a work for the New York City Ballet. Since then, Peck's dances have leapt onto Broadway and the big screen. He's become one of the world's most celebrated choreographers, but Peck says Illinois was always on his mind.
Every once in a while, I would just say, hey, Sufjan, what do you think about taking Illinois and turning it into a musical? And eventually he turned to me and he was like, okay, here's the keys to the car. Take this, explore it, and I'll be there to support you.
Sufjan Stevens' involvement has been limited. Last fall, he announced he was recovering from Guillain-Barré syndrome, which had left him unable to walk. Peck says he knew Stevens had faith in him, but he figured he could use some help, so he recruited Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright Jackie Sibley's Drury.
Did you like the challenge of writing a musical without words?
Yes. I feel like, maybe more musicals should not have words.
They thought about including dialogue, then decided against it, but they still wanted to tell a story.
Can we peek in here? What's in this secret book that you guys have created together?
It's almost like a treatment if we think of the piece as like a silent film. Like it's like a narrative description of what goes on over the course of the show.
The show follows a restless young man named Henry who finds himself around a campfire with friends, sharing diary entries, and who eventually decides to share his own story.
We're kind of doing what the characters do, which is we're like sort of sitting around a campfire.
It's an ode to the origins of theater making. It's like, this is how it all began. People started to tell each other stories and entertain one another.
One of the musicians in the band is Sharon Nova, who sang on the original album.
When we were making the record, we were just having fun. Seeing how the ripple has blown out is just incredible.
I mean, it was pretty far from Broadway, what was happening back then.
Exactly.
7 miles above the earth.
You're standing up here every night. You can look out into the audience. The people who come to this show, do they know these songs already?
Some of them know the songs and some of them don't. And you can sure see the ones that do because they're moving in 5.
Right. A lot of fans of Sufjan Stevens love this show. A lot of people who love this show are discovering Sufjan Stevens. Does Sufjan Stevens love this show?
That's an interesting question. You know, he came to see the show a few weeks ago, and he was really blown away by it. He just kind of took it all in and had a great spirit about it, and there were a few really like funny moments where he was like, did I really write that lyric? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
There's something so bittersweet about the idea that he's struggling with his own mobility at the time that his songs are being given new life in this very physical form.
Yeah, it's a lot to grapple with.
I can't explain.
The show also deals with a lot of grief. It's very much reflective of life. There are these very high moments and there's very low moments. I think that's part of why audiences are really able to connect to this musical.
Illinois is an unlikely Broadway show, but it has received 4 Tony nominations, including Best Musical. And Justin Peck likes the idea that audiences might not know quite what they're in for.
That's the mark of good work, is if an audience can know nothing about it and just enter into the space and take it in and have an experience that moves them.
That's like a more eloquent way of saying no spoilers.
No spoilers, exactly, no spoilers.
Of course, tonight here on CBS, it's the 77th Tony Awards. Bjork Lee already has her Tony. She won a special award in 2017 after a remarkable career as an actor, dancer, choreographer, and director, dating back more than 70 years. She's talking with Mo Rocca.
5, 6, 7, 8.
The 1975 musical A Chorus Line had no stars. Instead, it told the stories of the dancers who hustle from show to show, whose names audiences will probably never know. The show became a Tony Award-winning smash.
Why was A Chorus Line such a big hit?
I think, first of all, we were the first reality show.
You really think so?
Oh, absolutely. We played ourselves.
Bjork Lee played one of those dancers, doing what they do for one simple reason.
What I did for love.
The theme song that Marvin Hamlish wrote for us, which is What I Did for Love, really is what it's all about. We love what we do. It's the passion and the dedication and the discipline.
Not what I did to become a star.
Exactly.
The musical was the brainchild of director Michael Bennett, who was known for incorporating contemporary dance moves into his choreography. Take this number from 1968's Promises, Promises, with music by Burt Bacharach and featuring Lee. It is an extraordinary dance. My biggest question is, how did you actually keep your heads on your necks?
We would go to the chiropractor once a week.
Promises, Promises was Bjork Lee's third show as a Michael Bennett dancer. But her path to Broadway began much earlier, when she was 5 years old and living in New York's Chinatown.
So this is Mott Street. So back, I think, in the 30s, earlier than that, there was only one block or two blocks.
Was
Chinatown.
Back then, Lee's world revolved around this 2-block stretch, where she went from her Catholic grammar school to the restaurant Wo Hop, which her father founded in the 1930s.
We are doing the dumplings one time and pick us a snow pea pods and cut the string beans every morning.
Do you remember your father doing this?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then, in 1951, when Rodgers and Hammerstein's The King and I, starring Yul Brynner, was casting the roles of royal children, Bjork and her brother ventured uptown to audition.
And there were thousands of kids there, well, looked like thousands of kids there, and we all got on the stage, and I saw chandeliers, and I saw velvet seats, and I was just mesmerized.
Had you shown any evidence before 5 years old that you might want to be a performer?
No.
Did you take to it immediately, this performing thing?
Oh, absolutely. Ham on ham.
Bjork Lee had found her calling. And then when you were 8, what happened?
I was let go because I outgrew my costume.
Them's the breaks.
Them's the breaks.
And so did you go on unemployment?
I went on unemployment. My mother had to pick me up to sign in. Everybody knew me at the unemployment office. Here she comes. She replaced.
For a while, she attended the prestigious School of American Ballet.
Now here I am in the Nutcracker.
Directed by George Balanchine,
Mm-hmm.
the original Nutcracker. But soon enough, it was back to Broadway. Then here you are with the great Sammy Davis Jr.
Yes. And here I am here with Tommy Tune.
4'10", 4'10", that's the story of my life.
When A Chorus Line opened, Lee was still only 29, but it would be her last show as a performer.
Opening night, Michael Bennett said to me, "You're going to take this all over the world." And I just looked at him and laughed. Really?
He basically handed you the keys.
Yes, he handed me the keys opening night.
Lee was starting a new act in her career. Since 1975, she's helped cast and direct productions of the musical all over the world.
A 5, 6, 7, and a 1 change.
The role of nurturer came naturally to her, as I can attest.
Point, flick, step, kick, tap, change.
In 2009, Lee co-founded the National Asian Artists Project.
Good to have you.
The goal? Exposing Asian Americans to the joys of musical theater.
This goes this way. Hush now, we blowing.
And this 78-year-old isn't just lending her name to the cause. We saw her rehearsing aspiring performers in that turkey lurkey dance. And later introducing them to a crowd of tourists at a Midtown Manhattan hotel. And in 2017, Bjork Lee earned the Isabel Stevenson Tony Award for her work.
I really cherish this because it is about me helping my community. Not my 12 Broadway shows, not all of the things that I've done. I really take pride in this. Let's do those arms again. Do you know when to do it? Here we go.
Today, Bjork Lee, a child of the stage, has raised more Broadway babies than she can count. Do you feel like this represents your life's work?
Absolutely. Represents my life's work.
Which isn't done yet.
No. Hold it and freeze. Freeze, freeze, freeze. Good. Cut. Let's do it one more time from the top.
It's Sunday morning on CBS, and here again is John Dickerson.
What happens when two stars align on the same stage? A lot, if it's Mia Farrow and Patti LuPone. Seth Doane caught up with them on Broadway.
If I had 1,000 hats, they'd all be off to Patti LuPone, and
Oh.
that's a fact. It's just a fact.
They're famous performers, but this is not acting.
First of all, Mia underestimates herself. I talk about her like she's not here.
Mia Farrow and Patti LuPone have been pals for 30 years.
What do each of you see in the other?
We are different. I'm sort of, I guess you'd say I'm pepper, she's sugar, or agave, or honey, and I'm paprika. Do you know what I mean? And
Is that how you see it, Mia?
I wouldn't have thought of the food element, probably, or the spice element, but that's not wrong. I don't know. I see it below the pepper or honey or agave, if you will, is a human soul that is immense and that I am drawn to. I really value Patti as a friend.
I look at the audience before I start the play because I want to see who I'm playing to.
As close as these two showbiz veterans are, they have never worked together until now. We met them recently during tech rehearsal for The Roommate, the two-person play opening on Broadway this month.
I think people are not used to seeing a theater in this state with all of these things around.
Do people know how much stuff there is?
I love to be in technicals. I love to see everybody at work like this.
Now 75, Patti LuPone made her Broadway debut more than 50 years ago. She's acted in this very theater and won 3 Tony Awards for roles in Evita, Company, and Gypsy.
We weren't necking. He kissed me once, and I kissed him once.
Mia Farrow, who's 79, got her start even earlier in Peyton Place in the mid-1960s. She's the first American woman to join the Royal Shakespeare Company and achieved cinematic immortality in the horror classic Rosemary's Baby.
What have you done to it? What have you done to its eyes?
To this day, the best part I've ever been offered.
And you were 20 years old when you did Rosemary's Baby.
I think I was 21.
21.
Getting these two legends together took a little convincing and coordinating.
The directors each asking, you're saying, are you going to do it? You going to do it?
Yeah.
Is that really how it works?
Yeah.
But we did call each other a lot because I thought it would be so exciting to work with Mia, whom I adore. Just to listen to Mia talk about anything is such an event that I would rather do that than rehearse. I would rather do that than eat lunch. We all feel that way. It's an amazing experience just to listen to her.
Who decided to do this first?
Mia.
You decided to do
But
it?
it was dependent on Patti doing it.
But they went to Mia first. And I'm actually a second choice. I don't even know about I'm a second. I could be a third choice. I don't know.
Who was ahead of you?
Annette Bening.
I'm really glad it's Patti.
What's that like as an actor?
Well, I'll tell you. It's not comfortable.
How do you deal with it?
You accept the part because you need to.
The Roommate is a comedy about a New Yorker portrayed by LuPone who moves to the Iowa home of Farrow's character. Secrets and surprises abound.
I'm gay.
Oh, you. I mean, I don't have any problem with homosexuals.
Oh, good.
No, not at all.
It's one set, one act, and 90 minutes of lines to remember.
Who's better at remembering their lines?
We're both struggling.
Both struggling.
It's just the two of us.
They are icons and legends, but they're also consummate artists.
Playwright Jen Silverman says The Roommate gives audiences the chance to see the richness and depth of women of a certain age.
When was the last time you were on a date?
When I got married. And we all saw how well that turned out.
Who Silverman says are often rendered invisible.
It is harder for roles for women our age. And it's a pity because we come with a certain amount of wisdom, experience that is still sexy. Still very sexy.
Why do you see it as sexy?
Why do I see it as sexy? Because it is. Because we come with a power.
A Broadway legend just loses it on stage.
Last night, theater actress Patti LuPone grabbed a cell phone out of the hands of an audience member who was texting.
LuPone has used her stature to admonish audience members who peek at their phones.
It's something you abhor.
I think we all abhor it. I'm just vocal about it.
How is that as an actor?
It's distracting to the actor, but it's worse for the audience, you see, because we're trying to create a story, weave a spell.
Mia Farrow's own real-life story has always fascinated the public. At 21, she married Frank Sinatra.
Like Patty, he was Sicilian. But unlike Patty, he had a temper. But the essential person was so compassionate and shy and readily available, more than anyone I've ever known. It ended up being a friendship that lasted until he died.
Of course, she's also known for her relationship with Woody Allen. They made 13 films together. Mia Farrow and their adopted daughter, Dylan Farrow, accused Allen of molesting Dylan when she was 7. Woody Allen vehemently denies the charge.
Are you able to separate the experience as an actor in those films from the personal trials and tribulations that would follow?
Oh, yeah. And I completely understand if an actor decides to work with him. I'm not one who says, oh, they shouldn't.
Mia Farrow tells us she's at peace today and pretty content out of the spotlight.
But not many people have had Mia's life.
You have lived a fascinating
I'm old, I've
Well, there are a lot of
old people that haven't lived your
life.
life.
Had quite the same
Exactly.
set of experiences.
Exactly.
How does that factor into a decision to do something like this?
It was perhaps a feeling of maybe, is this it? Or might there be one last adventure?
What do you mean by is this it?
Meaning, never do anything else for the remainder of my days.
Had you thought that?
Yeah, I'm very good at doing nothing. It's a gift. I'm immensely entertaining to myself. I have good friends. I have no complaints.
I don't have Mia's mindset. I wish I did. I'm not good not working. I don't know what to do in spare time. I get extremely depressed because I feel useless.
You have to stop thinking about yourself as basically dead. You are actually younger than most U.S. presidents.
As you look back on your careers, what is the measure of success?
I think it's longevity. I really do. I think if you're still working, if you're still vital, if they still want you to work at this time, that's success.
I agree. The fact that we're even working now, that to me is success.
From the annals of life imitating art comes the story of romantic comedy writer Delia Ephron, whose own real-life tale of heartbreak and second chances could easily have been scripted by, well, Delia Ephron. She's on Broadway with Dr. John LaPook.
In your wildest imagination, did you ever imagine?
No, actually it was a dream too big.
Writer Delia Ephron, famous for rom-coms like You've Got Mail.
Do you think we should meet?
Meet?
Knows how to dream up a fairy tale storyline.
You have a play that's going to open up on Broadway.
Yeah, I know. How amazing is that? How amazing is that?
But Ephron's Broadway debut later this month comes directly from the pages of her life.
He had prostate cancer. It had spread to his bones. The doctor said, we've done all we can.
Delia, you write about the most intimate things, but now your life is on the stage for everybody to see.
That is an interesting problem because I am basically introverted. So this is not easy.
Good girl, come on. But she sure makes it look easy. When we first interviewed Ephron 2.5 years ago, she just finished a best-selling memoir, Left on 10th. Now she's turned that book into a play.
My husband died.
Telling her remarkable story of beating the odds. Emmy Award winner Juliana Margulies plays Ephron.
Now he wasn't going to be here.
It's a story of a woman who loses her beloved husband of 38 years.
Hi, Delia. Peter Rudder here.
A man from her past drops into her life. And she falls madly in love.
The most wonderful thing has happened. I've fallen What? What is it?
And then shortly afterwards, I got diagnosed with a terrible disease, a fatal leukemia, and I survived.
That's right. 7 years ago, because of her blood cancer, Delia Ephron was given 4 months to live.
I'm so sorry.
She'd already lost her sister Nora and her husband Jerry to cancer. But she somehow found love again and got married in the hospital while undergoing chemo.
To love and to cherish.
I should say, in full disclosure, we're dear friends. And in fact, I was visiting you in the hospital when you got married.
You were at my wedding.
I was at your wedding,
and I photographed it.
I love you very much, dear you mine.
5-time Tony Award winner Susan Stroman is directing the play.
It's about second chances.
Yeah, it's about
second chances in love and life, and being brave enough to take those second chances, because most people aren't.
The two women share something in common they wish they didn't.
I sadly lost my husband to AML, to leukemia. So when I started to read the play, I knew everything about what was going on. I didn't have to research anything because I had lived it too.
How do you direct the turn from humor to tragedy and back again?
It's tricky, actually.
But it's a trick Stroman mastered as we watched, tagging along every step of the way.
What's better than starting rehearsal for a Broadway show? Nothing.
From the first meet and greet, to an early rehearsal, to the stage of the James Earl Jones Theater.
Part of me was the person who wasn't sick, who had walked into that clinic room believing she was healthy. How could I not be healthy when I was so gloriously happy?
They're saying it's a rom-com, and it is. It's romantic, and it's funny, and it's wonderful. But bring tissues.
Yeah.
In case you need them.
Stage legend Peter Gallagher plays Peter Rudder, Ephron's newfound love.
Will you marry me? Is that a yes?
Yes!
The play is about two people falling in love who are not in their 20s or 30s. They're older than that. And what's the significance of that?
Well, you're closer to death. Everything is precious. And I think that's another thing that the audience is going to recognize and feel.
Delia had been in the hospital 100 days.
Are there life lessons in this play for all of us?
One day, I could stand.
We plan our lives out as a young person. Oh, I want to get married, I want to have children, I want to have a career. You make all these things. But then you don't think, oh, what's going to happen to me after I'm 50?
And another day, I could dance.
What life do I want then? It's a much more open book. And this is about seizing those years and really creating something.